Okay, I see a number of people joining our chat room and our webinar viewing room. So we'll wait just a minute or so and then we'll go ahead and get started. Looks like we're going to have a good turnout today. We'll give it about 30 more seconds and then we'll get started. Okay, it looks like the login viewing room is leveled off. We'll go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, good evening, or good morning, everyone, depending on where you may be logging in from around the world. I am Rob Burgess, I head up business development for Sino-Biological, and it is my pleasure and honor to be your host today for the next installment in the Sino-Biological hosted and sponsored webinar series called Lock and Key. In this series, we actually hear from cutting edge scientists as well as individuals like today, this Kelly O'Neill, who is a quality director, and we hear about cutting edge technologies. And today we have a very interesting topic today from Kelly focused on the monitoring and achieving of quality utilizing analytical tools and standardized testing. So I think you're really going to enjoy it. There's one housekeeping issue I want to mention. As you log in, please get in the chat box and just say hello. Tell us where you're from around the world. We always like to know where people are chiming in from. And also type your questions into the chat box and we will withhold all the questions until the end of the webinar. And then I will verbally walk through all of those questions in the chat box with Ms. O'Neill. We'll try to get to as many of those as we can. So please don't hold back on your questions. And with that, it's my pleasure and honor to introduce to you all our speaker today. It is Kelly O'Neill, who is the Director of Quality Assurance at the Colorado-based company Endeavor. Kelly actually completed her bachelor's degree in psychology at the University of Colorado in Boulder with a research internship focused on attention and reinforcement learning. She then shifted her focus to pharmaceutical research, where she worked for Rocky Mountain Poison and Drug Safety under the Denver Health Medical Center as a research assistant on the Consumer Health Product Association's long-term study of children's cough and cold medication safety. In addition, she has managed the coordination of post-market surveillance reporting for a number of contracted pharmaceutical companies. Kelly has been working for Endeavor since 2016 and currently serves as the Director of Quality Assurance there. The title of Kelly's talk today is Driving Quality Goals Through Analytical Tools and Standardization. Kelly, it is a pleasure to have you today, and I turn the floor over to you.
Thank you, Rob. Hello, everyone. As Rob mentioned, we will be discussing how to drive your quality goals through analytical tools and standardization. By way of agenda, as far as what we will be touching on today, I'm going to provide an overview about who we are and what we do at Endeavor. What I hope you take away from this webinar is a look at the inherent value of a supplier's quality management system, how we are defining standardization, what its benefits are, how standardization eases your validation efforts on your product, and the overall traceability that comes with using analytical tools. So about Endeavor, Endeavor began with the goal to improve analytical tools available for the development and manufacture of vaccines and therapeutics. And in that 20 years, we've been developing multiplex assays across a wide variety of applications for multivalent vaccines. And these assays can be used in R&D labs, clinical labs, and quality control labs. And while we've historically served the traditional vaccine industry, we've expanded into mRNA analytics lately, and we are always exploring future applications of the Vaxxeray technology. A note that this presentation will be touching on the VaxArray technology and how it can help with standardizing activities in your company, but it will not be a review of the science behind the platform itself. We have some other great webinars hosted by our technical team that I can point you to if that is of interest, or you can reach out to our sales team to learn more about the platform. About me, as Rob had mentioned, I am the Director of Quality Assurance at Endeavor, and I've managed our ISO 13485 quality management system since 2018. I started here in 2016 as the Administrative Projects Coordinator for our FluidChip 8G project, which received 510K clearance in 2019. I'm a certified lead auditor for ISO 13485 2016 and a certified internal auditor for ISO 17025 2017. And again, as Rob mentioned, my background in QA is also joined with pharmaceutical safety surveillance. I want to talk about what I'm hoping for you to learn from this webinar. So the first is to understand the advantages of technology developed under a quality management system, how the benefits of the supplier's quality management system are inherent in the product that you receive. Learn how process standardization enabled by analytical tools systematically reduces risk and adds value to your entire organization, not just in the laboratory. And finally, how to evaluate an analytical tool for use in your company's quality management system, whether it be technology from our company or another application if you are in an industry other than vaccines or biotherapeutics. Let's start with why your supplier's quality management system matters. An ISO certification is an easy requirement for evaluating your suppliers, but I want to highlight the inherent benefits that come with technology developed under a certified quality management system so that you can gain confidence in the suppliers you choose, because ultimately your suppliers want to be a partner in helping your company reach their goals. First, we have an assurance of service and product quality. Through a design process, products are designed, tested, and verified to work for a particular use, and they take into account problems or bottlenecks for the user in a specific industry. With design and quality controls in place, there is consistency over time with minimal failures or defects, and it reduces the risk of overall product quality issues for the customer. It improves reliability and operational efficiency for the customer. Products and services are delivered on time, reducing supply chain issues. Oftentimes, many suppliers will enter into supply and/or quality agreements to ensure materials are always available for you, and if not, that alternatives have already been appropriately sourced and validated. And continuous improvement on behalf of the supplier. This is occurring regularly and isn't necessarily visible until you get that new or updated product, software, or service. And sometimes these improvements are the direct result of a customer's feedback. A quality management system facilitates faster problem solving. When there is a clear path forward or structure on how to handle failures when they occur, they can typically be resolved sooner. Root cause or CAPA processes become collaborative between the supplier and the customer. A QMS aids compliance efforts. A certified QMS shows that it follows globally recognized globally recognized quality practices, and its products can meet regulatory, industry, and safety standards. There's a focus on the customer. This is probably the biggest benefit because it promotes transparency and accountability to build collaboration and long-term trust between the supplier and the customer. And there are feedback loops in place. So as I mentioned on the previous slide, you may have a say in how products are created or updated. And finally, cost. By minimizing the direct and indirect cost of failures, the savings can be passed on to the customer. Based on the quality management system of your supplier, your organization should now have confidence in the supplier and the tools that they have developed. Endeavor's VaxArray platform, which was developed under our quality management system, focuses on standardization, which we determine to be vital in our system and recognize it to be just as important for our customers. So if you start standardizing early in your development timeline, it is likely that you can avoid issues later on. And with that, let's move on to the details of standardization within your company. I want to provide clarity on what we mean when talking about standardization. In the simplest terms, we're enforcing a level of consistency or uniformity to an activity, which may include the methods or procedures that are performed, the materials that are used, or the direct output of the data. And the proper analytical tool can help to standardize some, if not all, of these variables. For those that are in the vaccine or biotherapeutics industry, VaxArray can standardize all of these items. Let's look at some development risks that you may face without standardization. Misaligned goals and inconsistent deliverables. This may be more likely if you have multiple sites or a larger team. Identification of significant issues midway through development, easily the top issue you might face and most costly. Uncertainty in project planning due to unclear or inconsistent data. This is especially true for folks that aren't working directly in the activity itself, like a scientist might be. Variability that can compromise data integrity or regulatory acceptance. If this is something that your company is seeking, there is the possibility that additional clinical trials are requested or your application is rejected. And finally, batch failures, product recalls, even possible patient harm if your company works in the public health industry. Ultimately, we're looking at risks to your company that impact the most obvious being financial cost. Time, you may lose competitive edge in the market or be unable to deliver product in an appropriate time frame. Your company's reputation, which is difficult to regain from the public or company stakeholders, especially if there are recalls or patient harm involved. And with those risks in mind, how does an analytical tool with standardization capabilities benefit a company? To start, we gain consistency in expectations. By standardizing metrics for your products, all stakeholders are working towards the same definition of success, and it's easy to align metrics through different departments, research and development, validation, manufacturing, even beyond. And you have the ability to compare projects through time. Now, for example, customers utilizing our VaxArray platform at different global locations have been able to centralize their data and gain consistency in report results by deploying that single uniform platform. So consistency across different physical locations and sometimes even languages, that can help with uniform interpretation. It will ultimately reduce time and cost efforts. And I will touch on this in a few sections regarding materials and ultimate validation, but there's also some consistency in the tool itself. Standardization allows you to identify issues early in your project timeline. If you are consistently tracking performance, trends or problems can be detected before they escalate. And because you can utilize a tool like VaxArray throughout the entire development process, you have the benefit of the same data output at each major step, which will allow you to see trends early on. And if your company is utilizing several tools at different junctures of the development process, and say one is more sensitive than the other, you might see issues that you haven't previously identified. And we recognize that in cell and gene therapy industries specifically, being able to verify highly variable materials early on in your development process is critical for reducing this risk. So if we're looking at the development timeline, we really want to avoid any changes about here before going into formal clinical trials. Standardization can improve decision-making on a project. If you have standardized metrics that allow all of your stakeholders, regardless of position, to understand the results, that can facilitate better prioritization of project tasks or resource allocation. Everyone has an opportunity to contribute to the project now with their unique skill set, regardless of how close they are to a direct process. And for anyone that isn't working in the laboratory, a better understanding of the data itself can help determine where there might be holes, or if your scientists aren't seeing any problems, you may be able to offer some potential solutions. So for example, you know that you have a material that is always performing within this specific range, yet you have a new data set that comes up which shows some unusual anomalies. Your executive team would then understand the urgency in assigning the time for an additional scientist to investigate. The benefits for standardization apply to compliance in the regulatory environment as well. Because you have trust in your product development and its outputs, this leads to smoother audits, streamlined submission packages, and faster interactive reviews. And a note that our VaxRite assay is accepted as a neuraminidase identity release test for influenza vaccines by the FDA, Health Canada, the European Medicines Agency, and the Therapeutic Goods Administration. And even if you have an analytical tool that isn't being used as a final release test, it can be beneficial to have one in a GMP environment as an additional testing control. And I will touch on 21 CFR Part 11 later in this presentation when we look at traceability. And let's look at the benefits of standardization for materials specifically. And on this slide is an image of our off-the-shelf reagent kit, which by design can be used with all of our standard VaxRite assays as well as any custom developed kits. And as I mentioned previously, using standardized materials can help minimize sources of variability across the analytical tool itself. And standardized materials are going to be dependable and reliable. They're consistently developed and manufactured under that quality management system, which reduces variability and supply chain uncertainties, enabling reliable results for you as the customer. It helps mitigate risk by reducing non-conformances, deviations, or quality issues as the kit is produced with robust quality controls and traceable documentation. It's faster to implement into a QC workflow. They're pre-validated. It improves efficiency for the customer as it reduces testing time and labor. You aren't having to prepare reagents in-house. And finally, if you have your testing volumes increasing, you can scale using a standardized kit. It ensures consistent performance across product batches. Now, once you have that analytical tool in place, validation of your product is simplified based on several different factors. It should be faster, repeatable, reproducible. You'll be able to compare data as needed. It will have a positive impact on your supply chain. And it's easy to integrate into your company's existing systems. Diving a little bit deeper into these, if you have less variables when it comes to things like hands-on time, material composition, and setup, you have better reproducible data, especially if you have larger teams. And if we look at a comparison of VaxRite to other methods, you can see that you glean more information in less time with less manpower. And think about how much easier it is to pinpoint errors in a process with more automation versus one that has more manual steps. So the less variables you have in that project, if you do have a problem, the easier it would be to troubleshoot. And ultimately, the tool is easier to use as well. Comparable data. If you have changes to your systems, you need to account for how to meet the same performance in a new or different operating environment. If you have a facility change or move, an analytical tool can help you easily check performance before and after the change. Employee turnover and training. It allows for faster onboarding to the process, and you can complete regular performance checks on that process. And scale-up efforts, as I mentioned before when talking about using standardized reagents. If your company is increasing throughput, it allows for simplified comparisons to ensure that your results are within the appropriate tolerance levels. Impact on supply chain. If you're using an active pharmaceutical ingredient or fill finish supplier, you can reduce translation errors and issues with incompatible data outputs. And that's because you have a tool that is giving you the ability to validate at multiple points throughout development. So from early feasibility all the way through distribution. And finally, the structure of standardized procedures and data can easily be integrated into your existing systems, such as an electronic quality management system or laboratory information management system. Now let's take a look at the overall traceability that a quality management system developed analytical tool will provide. And for any quality assurance folks that are attending this webinar, this section is going to show how it benefits your department mostly. You have defined methods and procedures. This is our Vaxray technical guide, which details the assay procedure. And we know defined methods and procedures are the core of quality control. How is something being completed? And with defined methods and procedures, your quality assurance department can perform working checks on a process. So not just a larger system audit, but smaller scale checks. So you can ask a scientist, how are you performing step 5 of this procedure? And then compare to the written procedure for accuracy. Consistent documentation. This is an example of the first data output page from our Vaxray software. So showing what occurred, when it occurred, why it occurred. This is incredibly important for QA departments, and it makes it easy to respond when being audited. There's version control. Our Vaxray software always denotes which version is being used, and all changes are tracked and can be traced back through the product lifecycle. So if you were using software version 3.1.16, you know what capabilities it had at that point if you're making software upgrades in the future as they become available. Let's say you've implemented that analytical tool like Vaxray to be used to determine your testing, manufacturing, and release metrics. All features are going to be going through the same level of verification, and builds are repeatable, and all your components are traceable at that point. So if you do need to troubleshoot or redo a batch, you have the capability to do that easily and compare the data. And finally, but most importantly, your tool, Vaxray included, can meet regulatory and compliance standards such as 21 CFR Part 11 that lay out the guidelines for electronic data handling and security. So you have authenticated electronic records and signatures, audit trails, and overall data security and storage confidence. In closing, let's look at some of the final takeaways. Standardization can be deployed through analytical tools such as the Vaxray platform, which encompasses a multitude of standardization benefits for vaccine and biotherapeutics customers. And I'd like you to take this opportunity to talk to scientists or your laboratory staff or your other team members. What tools are they using, if any? Are they meeting qualifications of your quality management system? If they're facing issues without using any tools or standardized processes, what tools could you seek out for them? And what questions can you ask to determine if a tool is right for your company? Does it improve my company's current processes or operations? Basically, is it better than what we're doing now? Can it be used across multiple departments for consistency? So can everyone use it throughout the development process? Is it easy to implement, utilize, and interpret outputs? If it's not going to get used or it's difficult to interpret the data that's coming out of it, is it worth it? Does it come from a supplier with a quality management system that understands my needs? Your supplier likely understands your issues and has designed this tool knowing how to solve them. Does it provide the level of traceability I need to meet my company's quality management system requirements? So are there appropriate levels of documentation that you can understand how to defend in your own quality management system? And finally, does it enable my company to feel more confident in the event of an audit or regulatory interaction? So with that, I want to thank you for attending this webinar, and for more information about Endeavor, our technology, or operationalizing Vaxray in your company, you can visit our website. This QR code will lead you there, or I welcome you to reach out directly to me or our sales department. And with that, Rob, I'll turn it back over to you if there's any questions or comments.
Great. Thank you, Kelly. Wonderful presentation. We appreciate it. I've actually had trouble coming up with a good question because it was so clear. But wonderful work there. I would ask the audience to please ask some questions in the chat box. We don't have a question yet from the audience. And while we're waiting on that, I'm wondering if maybe you could go back to your competitive analysis slide. I'd really like to understand better the time savings, the multiplexing advantages, and really what sets Vaxarray apart from the competition.
Absolutely. Let me click through all of these items.
That was a great slide, and I think it's important for the audience to see that again, actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there it is. Looks good. So, I mean, would you mind just verbally walking us through this and just pointing out the advantages of Vaxarray over ELISA and others?
Yeah, absolutely. So ELISA and SHRD assays are kind of the old school, current gold standard methods. And as you can see, mainly all of your categories compared to Vaxarray, there's some disadvantages in terms of the information content you glean. So Vaxarray is a multiplex assay, so you can analyze 53 analytes, whereas SHRD and ELISA, you're only able to do one at a time. The hands-on time is significantly less, which, as I pointed out, if you have less hands-on time, less variables, there's likely less human error that can occur in that 30 minutes versus an assay that's taking you all day or half a day. The time to result is clearly a benefit using Vaxarray. You can get results in about an hour as opposed to a day or 2 days. So you think about that from a cost savings perspective of the time and effort of your scientists. The materials, as we touched on, you can use off-the-shelf reagents with Vaxarray. You're not having to do in-house plate setups or source your antibodies. Everything comes for the Vaxarray kit already included with your assay reagent kit. And then the data output, probably most importantly, is that your data output is automated by Vaxarray through our software, whereas with SHRD and ELISA, you're doing that workup manually.
That's fantastic. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to ask, is your system used like in the therapeutics industry, maybe for the manufacture and QC analysis of a therapy, or maybe in clinical trials at all?
It can be, and that's something, if that is what a company is aiming for, they can reach out to our technical support team to determine what their exact needs are and how Vaxarray could be used in that process.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. We do have a question now from the audience. It's Ragda Kalani is asking, since it is not a pharmacopoeial method, what degree of validation shall the customer do to fulfill regulatory requirements? Maybe you understand that question better than I do.
Yeah, that's a great question. So our Vaxarray software for utilizing the platform itself in the customer's hands comes with an operational qualification and an instrument qualification procedure. So once you've ordered the Vaxarray and it arrives on site, there are tests that you perform to ensure that it's working properly when it arrives at your site and you've set it up. We also have the capability before you even use Vaxarray, if you want to see, do my products work with the Vaxarray system, we have an expert services department here. You can send materials to us. We can do preliminary testing to see how your product is reacting on Vaxarray and determine, is there means to move forward with the off-the-shelf kits that we offer, or is the possibility that you might want to develop a custom assay and then have those available for use as well. And any additional validation needs at that point can be discussed with our field application scientists as well to determine if you're getting everything that you need for that regulatory submission.
Great. That actually answers Ragda's second question, I think, was does the company help out? And I assume that you did. So
absolutely.
That's good. Let me ask you the cost of the Vaxarray system and do you have them in stock and the install time and that kind of thing?
That's a great question, actually, again, for our technical team.
Okay. Sounds good. Maybe this is proprietary information, but can you tell us how many have gotten the field and your worldwide coverage with the system?
That's also a great question. Craig, I don't know if you're still on the call, if that's something you would be able to answer.
I see him here.
Hi, yes, my name's Craig. Yeah, we have about 200 units across the country or across the world, the globe, and we have distributors and partners in various places across the globe who help customers install and do training and help with development, et cetera. So yeah, we have a good support structure across the world.
Great. Glad to hear that. We actually had a worldwide audience today, so I'm sure they're glad to hear that. I think that's it. We don't have any further questions. I'm kind of out of questions, so we'll go ahead and wrap it up just a few minutes early today. First, I want to thank all the attendees. We had a great turnout today, and I have to tell y'all where everybody's from. We had researchers and others chime in from Thailand, from Singapore, from Brazil, the Ukraine and India, Italy, Egypt, and Romania, and of course, all across the US, like Louisiana and Maryland, Seattle, San Francisco, places like that. So fantastic international audience. We certainly appreciate those chiming in from Bangkok and places like that, because we know it's about 2 a.m. your time or whatever. We appreciate your dedication and interest to hear in what Kelly has to say. Also, Kelly, I want to thank you. You're a wonderful, fantastic speaker. I want to congratulate you and Craig and Shannon and others at Endeavor on all your success. I did visit y'all several months ago. It was such a polite visit and productive visit, and we just really value our partnership with Endeavor there.
We do as well. Thank you, Rob.
And one other person I want to thank, and that's my colleague and good friend, Ms. Priscilla Hernandez. She's actually the one that technically executed this webinar, and once again, she did a flawless job. So thank you, Priscilla. And with that, we will close out the webinar, and I wish everybody a good morning or good evening. Thank you, and bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.